In 1991, the world changed forever. The Soviet Union, once the largest country in history, dissolved into 15 independent nations. But why? Why did a superpower, one that rivaled the United States in military, science, and ideology, suddenly crumble? The answer lies in history. The USSR was born out of the Russian Revolution of 1917. The old empire collapsed after war, poverty, and unrest. And the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, built something new, a state not based on kings or parliaments, but on the rule of the Communist Party. For decades, the Soviet Union grew. It industrialized at lightning speed. It defeated Nazi Germany in World War II. It launched the first satellite and the first man into space. But alongside these triumphs, there was hardship. Authoritarian rule, censorship, political purges. Millions suffered under Stalin's policies. Famine scarred the land, and despite its size, the Soviet economy struggled to give ordinary people the comfort they saw in the West. Still, the USSR held together. Its map stretched from Europe to Asia, controlling republics as different as Lithuania and Uzbekistan, Armenia and Kazakhstan. By the 1980s, though, cracks began to show. The war in Afghanistan drained resources and morale. The economy slowed, factories outdated, shortages common. People stood in long lines for basic goods, while they watched Western countries enjoy consumer luxuries. Nationalist movements began to rise. In the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, people demanded independence. In Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, ethnic and territorial conflicts erupted. And then came Mikhail Gorbachev. He tried to save the USSR through reforms. He gave people more freedom to speak, to criticize, and opened the economy a little to market practices. But instead of saving the system, these reforms exposed just how fragile it really was. Republics demanded more autonomy. Protests grew. The Communist Party's grip weakened, and in 1991, after failed coups, mass demonstrations, and political chaos, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. 15 nations emerged from its ruins: Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltics, the Caucasus states, and the 5 of Central Asia. For the first time in over 70 years, the red flag was lowered over the Kremlin. But now, let's ask the question, what if that collapse never happened? What if the USSR survived 1991 and kept all those republics inside one country? In this alternate reality, the Soviet Union is still with us today, its borders unchanged, its population over 400 million. Kyiv, Riga, Tashkent, Yerevan, none would be capitals of independent nations. They would be administrative cities. Moscow, still the center of it all. And the resources, absolutely staggering. Oil and gas from Siberia and Central Asia, uranium from Kazakhstan, wheat from Ukraine, industry from Russia. Together, a self-sufficient giant, a nation capable of feeding itself, fueling itself, and defending itself without anyone's help. Economically, this USSR would dominate global energy markets. Europe would still rely on Soviet pipelines. Asia would look to Soviet oil and gas. Agriculture from Ukraine's black soil would not be shipped by an independent Ukraine, but by the USSR. That means Moscow controls food as well as fuel. Such independence makes the Soviet Union nearly impossible to pressure. It wouldn't need Western imports. Instead, it could choose its trading partners: China, India, Africa, Latin America. Politically, the world would look very different. NATO expansion probably never happens. Poland, Romania, the Baltic states, they would still be in Moscow's shadow, not in the Western alliance. The Iron Curtain might still be there, maybe not as closed as in the 1950s, but still dividing Europe. The United States would not enjoy the unipolar moment it did in the 1990s. No, it would still face a rival just as strong, just as ambitious. The Cold War might never have ended, and militarily, this is where the USSR would truly shine. Its land forces would be unmatched, its nuclear arsenal massive, its navy patrolling the Arctic, the Pacific, and beyond. The Soviet Union would also double down on space. Instead of partnering with NASA on the ISS, it might race for a permanent lunar base, maybe even Mars. The space race would be alive and fierce. But keeping this giant alive would not be simple. The same problems that tore it apart in our reality still exist here. Nationalism in the Baltics, separatism in the Caucasus, religious tensions in Central Asia. Each of these could spark rebellion. And the economy? Even with resources, a rigid planned system struggles against innovation. Would the USSR adapt, embrace reforms like China did, or stay locked in old ways and risk stagnation? The Soviet Union might survive longer, but still face collapse one day. The world map would look very different. NATO pushed back, Eastern Europe still behind the Iron Curtain, a massive red giant across Eurasia. And the world itself? Safer or far more dangerous? The truth is, we'll never know.